Hi, everyone. This is Julie Roth Novack. I am the CEO and co-founder of PartySlate. I am really excited to be here with my incredible panel of leaders from Chicago, New York, DC, and California, from different coalitions that are really giving the event industry a seat at the table with local and national government, and really thinking through all of the nuances and craziness of kind of the reopening of our events industry and all of the incredible changes that have happened due to COVID. And the purpose of the call is, number one, we want to make sure to provide valuable content to local communities. And I know there are these coalitions all over the country. Many of you have said that you're excited that there's this platform to meet some of the leaders. I want to make sure that we can share information, best practices, but also see how you can jump in to help with some of the changes that are happening. So I'm really proud to introduce this incredibly experienced panel. I'll remind everyone that they can change their chat to all panelists and attendees. You can say, we've got a quick shout out from Los Angeles. You can give a shout out where you're coming from, where you're calling in from, and then you can also ask questions. So I'm going to do my best to get the questions from the chat room throughout the panel so that we can make this very interactive. But let's start really quickly with some introductions of this amazing panel. To make it simple, we're going to kind of go East Coast all the way over to the West Coast. So why don't we start with New York, and I'll start with Arthur. If you could just give a quick intro, who you are, you have an amazing event industry career, and talk a little bit about how you got involved with the coalition, the main purpose of the New York coalition that you're involved with. And then we can come back and talk about resources and all that good stuff. So Arthur, let's start with you, and then we'll go on to Will.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Julie. And it's great to be here with everybody all over the nation, different cities represented. And, we're all in this together. That's what's been amazing. It's been so challenging, but it's been also great to see our groups that we're working with here in New York and just really all across the country, of how everybody's pulling together and deal with this very challenging time that COVID-19 has dealt our industry. And our industry has really been felt, been affected so much. And I am on various sides of that in hospitality. I have an event planning firm that I started about 18 years ago. I also manage and own various venues, work with hotels. Also on the restaurant side, have a couple of restaurants where some of them are large scale, and also deal with a lot of events. But so much of my career has been focused on events. So it's an area that I'm involved in, I love, and I'm very passionate about, and helping every way I can with the coalition that we've been involved in on our side.
Great. Will, do you want to introduce yourself?
Certainly. Good afternoon, everybody. Thrilled to be here. Thank you, Julie and PartySlate for having us. My name is Will Joseph. I work as the director of sales for a couple organizations, one of which based in New York City is Abigail Kirsch, where we support both on-premise, cultural institution, and private residence catering, and off-premise, where we'll bop around town to venues throughout the city. We operate in a few different counties, which I think we'll talk about. That's one of the challenges here, is how each state and each county has its own unique complexities. I also lead the sales team for Constellation Culinary Group in New York, similarly an on-premise and off-premise caterer based in several states: Florida, New York, Pennsylvania, Washington, DC, and beyond. So again, like Arthur said, COVID has touched all of the facets of our business, from food and beverage service to venue management. And so Arthur and I both collaborated on a coalition in New York, founded really to make sure that we're in compliance and help local government to build out regulations so we can all get on the same page, and so that we can speak confidently to our clients and give everybody that sense of confidence in their event being a safe and responsible environment.
Great. Jeanette, DC.
Hi from Washington, DC. My name is Jeanette Tavares. I am the president of Evoke Design and Creative. We are a luxury event firm based in DC, but doing events worldwide. I'm representing the DC Event Coalition today. We represent the DMV area, so DC, Virginia, and Maryland, since we are all so close. I'm excited to share with you a little bit about what we've been working on here in DC. We came together March 7th, right when COVID hit, to really navigate these new uncharted waters that we all didn't really know how to handle. Together, we have over 400 individuals that log on to our weekly calls, and we really just guide everyone in opening phases, what to do, business planning, anything from if it's a PPP loan to what we need for compliance for PPE, and everything in between there. So really a big support system for the DC, Virginia, and Maryland market. Thanks for having me.
And I know you guys were early to market with your coalition, so thank you for sharing all the things that you've been doing. Chicago also was very early on. Allie, do you want to start, and then we'll go to Megan?
Yeah, my name is Allie Phillips. I am an event planner here based out of Chicago for the last 17 years. And I'm here today representing the Illinois Events Coalition on behalf of the three founders, myself, Michelle Durpetti, and Colin Pearson. And the Illinois Events Coalition was founded sort of late March, early April. We reached out to Jeanette, and she was a great mentor to us as we started. We're really here, the Illinois Events Coalition is a collection, sort of a constellation of event workers in Illinois. So we have sort of one common reality of what we know and what how we're used to planning is on hold right now. So we're really wanting to be that collective voice to our elected officials and policy and lawmakers so that we can effectively and properly represent our industry to them, so that they know who we are and understand how we contribute to the large event economy here in Illinois and how we are affected. And that's where we started, and we're in contact with our senator's office, congressmen and congresswomen's offices, and really here then to help advocate for our industry, to support those. So we've got some great resources, and we try to share everything that we see that's new, up and coming, and also help educate everyone. So as we move forward, you know, all of us are in different phases and in different situations in our states, and making sure that our supporters of the coalition are educated to be able to help their clients return. We're not hasty to it, but return. And when they do return safely to protect their family and friends and loved ones.
Great. Megan?
Hi, everybody. My name is Megan Estrada. I'm the owner and principal event planner for a company called North Shore Weddings and Events. We're a luxury social event planning company based in Chicago, but we serve events nationally. Recently, I've been leading a group called the NACE COVID-19 Task Force. I, in April, joined up with NACE National and the NACE Chicago chapter to address the fact that we weren't having conversations with the government about the reopening plans for the state of Illinois and Chicago. So we've been really successful in getting into the working groups for both the city and the state. And so recently our task force has wrote the phase 4 reopening guidelines, which have been presented recently. And then we've continued to be aligned with the Illinois Hotel and Lodging Association, the Illinois Restaurant Association, and hospitality unions to kind of move forward the events industry with safe events, and then try to go and encourage those guidelines to be followed by all of the industry in Illinois and Chicago.
Great, thank you. Last but not least, Kate from California. Oh, we can't hear you, Kate. You're on mute.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
I'm having wonderful tech issues today. Hi, I'm Kate. I'm the president of Kate Whalen Events in Northern California, in Sacramento, and I'm here to represent the California Events Coalition. We are probably the newest to the pack, I think. Many of us formed in frustration and conversations on Facebook and trying to get representation for our industry. I think our frustrations maybe even started a little bit sooner. For those of you from California who may be familiar with AB 5, and we were dealing with the gig economy issues that began at the beginning of this year. And just not having a lobbying arm to our industry was really frustrating to us. And we've tried going at it from several different angles before we realized that we needed to come together and create this coalition ourselves. So our goal is really to advocate, support, educate, and provide resources for our industry. We are actively having conversations with our local government. We've got some letters out there, and we are trying to grow right now. So trying to grow awareness of our organization and our industry in general.
Great. Well, I think one thing I've heard from all of you, especially yesterday when we got together to talk about this panel, is in a sense, the events industry, the restaurant industry has its association, hospitality, but sometimes events gets lost in the shuffle. It's this diffuse industry. Yet, at least from the numbers we're looking at, it's $150 billion US industry and $800 billion global industry, but yet it's hard to put, for politicians to put their arms around it. So it'd be great if when we go from we'll start from East, go to West Coast, we can start with Arthur. If you could talk a little bit about the state of the state, what's going on in New York, where the world of events are, how you got started with your conversations to get a seat at the table, and maybe talk a little bit about what you're advocating for the industry.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it's amazing to hear from everybody and their different perspectives. I think it's so important to see what's happening in different parts of the country. California, we know, Washington, California is where it really hit first here in the country, but New York, like everybody says, for good or for bad, but really for bad for our industry, it was the epicenter, and there was so much that happened here in terms of, not only the cause and the effect, but we really saw so much here, and we also came out of it slower. So our phases have been different than a lot of states. And as you've seen, as people have opened up maybe a little earlier, or whether you want to say too early or not, there's never probably a perfect time. It affects us. So when I hear about the national, what Megan's doing, I think is amazing. I think if you could get, a common voice throughout the country, it's going to really help our industry. But New York specifically is still in a very tough state because of the timing of all this. If we all know how it happened in New York when it really started hitting at the beginning of March, everybody had this optimism, when I could say there could be optimism, but you thought like these events were going to be postponing. Everyone was more focused in, wow, how could this be happening? We're going to now have a busy summer maybe. And then shortly after, the month or so later, we thought we were going to have the busiest fall ever, which is usually a busy time anyway here. Well, that, a month or so later, we know that all changed. And now 2020 is pretty much very much in jeopardy. And now we're into 2021 wondering what's going to happen. So while that all happened, we're also a month or so into it, a group of, industry leaders got together, started off as a smaller group, maybe 10, 12 people, and became 100 plus in force, like weeks later, of everybody from venue managers, owners, caterers, then all the different strategic partners, vendors, suppliers, putting together this protocol. So we set it up, we called it Best Banquet Event Strategic Task Force. Will's been involved, from the early stages. And we were so focused on the protocol, but we knew that if we didn't have the political action and getting the word out to the right government officials, everything we're doing to reopen and open up safely, it was a recovery group to open up and be able to open up as quickly and safely as possible, putting together all the guidelines that you need to. But we really needed to get to the right decision makers, because these task force, the governor's task force, all these other leaders in the city in hospitality, hotel associations, the union leaders, everybody was really, making these decisions, but we still felt like we weren't getting our voice heard. So I think we've made some groundwork. We've made some headway, I should say, getting our, presentation, our materials, all with the right people, but we have a long way to go. I think what's been happening with this letter writing, with getting to, the Senate, the Congress, I think that's so important, because we're looking at not only just getting back, but some people can't stay out for that long. On an event planning side, you're a smaller company, you could survive, if that's what you want to call it, but it might be tough for the next year. But there's some businesses like venues and operations that have tremendous overhead that if we don't get that kind of government help and funding as soon as possible, I think it's going to be really dire for a lot of these places. So there's so much happening. New York, really tough. We just entered phase 3 But just so you know, phase 3, phase 4 even doesn't even allow for much more than 50 people right now. So we're not even talking about capacities. We're talking about number of people. If anyone knows, everybody on this call and around watching, you know, a small gathering in the backyard is fine for 25 or so people. To do a major event and to fill these kind of venues that we have in New York, you need a lot more people than that. So that's the biggest you know, it's troubling. But at the same time, I think we're getting to the right people, but I don't know if it's going to happen fast enough. So that's why this, everything with the national level and really writing, I think some people have done some great things. I know Dewan Stroud, I don't know if he's on today's call, but he's been really taking a great lead on getting letters to senators and doing a lot here, both locally and nationally. So that's where we're at right now. But we're working hard and we're really banding together as a group, like I think everybody is. Much as we have some friendly competitors right now, everyone's in it together. So
yeah, we have some people that are saying, you know, tell us who to write to and they want to participate. So we're going to provide all of those resources afterwards, in addition to everyone who's on the contact information. So I know there's a lot that people can do to help support you at the local level. And then once there's more of a national effort, helping on the national level too.
That's
Will, was
really
there anything
important.
you want to add? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was
Go
going to say, like with the guidance, you know, nationally is great, but you know, the federal and states and then counties. I heard yesterday in our prep call, it was amazing, like how just so many different counties are operating differently, and that really
Yes.
affects the events. Somebody could do something for 50, and another person can't do it for 10 or 150.
Yeah.
So we're seeing that, you know, in different areas. But New York City is such, you know, it's such drives. I mean, it's over $10 billion alone just in New York City, and over 500,000 employed. And so many businesses affected. So
yeah, it's a huge industry, and my heart hurts for everyone, but I feel optimistic that there's so many strong leaders that are making an impact and really helping these, especially in the smaller businesses, make it through this tough time. Will, tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in New York from your perspective.
Sure. But to Arthur's point, I mean, a number of us do business in a number of different counties, a number of different cities, and oftentimes a number of different states, right? So Connecticut, New Jersey, New York are all operating on different guidelines right now. So you put yourself in your client's shoes. If they see that they can have a 250-person event in New Jersey, but they were originally anticipating having their event in New York, I mean, that's the game that our clients are having to play. And it's incredibly difficult, frustrating, and expensive, right? You know, the first priority of our coalition in New York was to write the protocols, right? Come together, make sure that we can all agree upon a set of protocols that we think make sense. And the caveat that always governs this is that it's fluid and evolving, right? It's always going to be based on the current advice by global and local health organizations, as well as local government. So step one was getting the protocols written. Step two was the political action. And now here we are, knowing that we have this, say, potentially 6-month bridge. You know, we're a collection of small businesses, right? And without this revenue that we're able to generate for the next 6 months, we need that bridge. And what Arthur had alluded to, the letter writing campaign to senators is really to try to engage federal government to accelerate or make small business loans more available for our industry. There are EIDL loans, there are SBA loans, there are SBA loans that are capped right now. We want to raise those caps. So a couple people have asked who to write to and how to write. So as Julie mentioned, we'll make sure that the templates are shared. We'll keep it really, really easy. And it's actually what Dewan had found out was the most effective way to reach out is a fax machine. They're overwhelmed with emails. So we're going analog with it, and we're attacking the fax machines. And I think you'll hear us talk about it a little bit more for the next 45 minutes. Is we need to be loud, right? As loud and large of a megaphone as we possibly can create on behalf of our industry to get this attention. So I think we'll talk about engaging press in a number of creative ways. And certainly Arthur and I have talked a lot about how much we've enjoyed the cooperation and the engagement within the industry. This is a wonderful example, right? The way that we can be loud is that we can be cohesive, that we can be together, and that we're all on the same page. So you know, this is, for me, this is why PartySlate exists, is to engage that community and have everybody be able to plug into the same information and share it as widely and loudly as we can.
That's great. And talk about campaigns. That's kind of a good handoff to Jeanette. I know there's a big campaign that's kicking off this week or already did kick off. Tell us a little bit about the state of the state, and I guess I shouldn't say that, DC and surrounding area, and then tell us about the new campaign that is launching.
Perfect, will do. So I'll just report for DC, although just like Will said, the DMV area, everyone's in a little bit of a different phase, which makes it really difficult for our vet professionals all over. You know, your warehouse is based in Maryland, but you're doing events in DC, but your LLC is registered in Virginia. There's a lot of blurry lines. And so today I'm just going to tell you that DC is in phase 2. That's 50 or less guests at a gathering right now that just started on June 22nd. So we're really only like a week and a half into it. Before that, it was no more than 15 guests. They're just pop back up events a little here and there. Really a big emphasis right now is virtual events in the DC market. A lot of our 2020 schedules have been cleared in communicating our coalition. We are hanging on to see if some large conferences are still going to be coming to DC and what inauguration looks like. So we're really hoping that we can kind of get back to the action, but right now it's not looking too great. We are definitely opening up slower, just similarly to New York City. So where DC is at specifically. In regards to our campaign, I think Will touched on it. Being loud is really important. I think so many people forget about how big our event ecosystem is. You know, it's the drivers, it's the delivery trucks, it's the UPS packages you're getting at your door, it's every piece of pipe and drape installer, many moving parts at an event, every producer, every planner, every delivery, every chef. And so I think it's really important to kind of around us how big we really are. And so DC Event Coalition, alongside of the Live Events Coalition, just started rolling out, I hope you can hear me, just started rolling out the Wish I Was There campaign, which we just started it yesterday. So for a week, we are asking everyone to post a black and white photo of them behind the scenes at an event and to kind of tell your story. Maybe where were you this week? Were you supposed to be at the melon producing event? Where were you going to be? Were you unloading trucks? And to kind of tell the story as to why we're missing events, why we are so important as an industry, and why it's really important for us to be able to raise money and get a seat at the table and lobby for this industry.
Great. Thank you, Jeanette. And we'll share all of the resources around that campaign as our follow-up. So now let's shift to Chicago. Maybe Megan, this time we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Allie, kind of the state of what's going on in Chicago.
Yeah, the state of Illinois is in an interesting situation because we just recently entered into phase 4. We have created guidelines that are really strong and really good to support safe events reopening. Phase 4 for the state of Illinois and Chicago essentially is capped at 50 people for events where previously we were at 10 people, or it's at a 25% occupancy, a certain percentage of occupancy, whichever is lower. So it's meant to go and keep people safe with those occupancy amounts. And also we recently made it very clear that staff is not included. So even though that's a small step to get to that 50 people, it really did actually open up our industry because we began to see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and that we're moving forward towards the ability to have events, which is really really important for regaining our industry. We've talked about it in some other conversations that, you know, we have such a long lead time of planning that, you know, it's not just, you know, my social events that need that time to go and take a look at, but it's also the conferences, the meetings. So by showing those steps of movement forward, we're hopefully going to keep some of the business that we have for the future and encourage them to continue to book, you know, much into the future, that we are moving there. With that 50 person, we did get additionally confirmation from the city and the states that they would review, you know, cases and deaths and things that were going on with COVID-19 and examine it every 2 weeks. Originally it was going to be at 28, every 28 days, 30 days, but now we've gotten them to agree to 2 weeks to review. So we're expecting in another week or two We're going to have conversations with both about possibly jumping from that 50-person maximum amount to a percentage of occupancy. And we've been, our kind of a plea has been that if the restaurants and other organizations and other retail stores and other things have the ability to have a percentage of occupancy, it's not fair that our industry is being separated out just because of the nature of our industry. We have to go, all guidelines and laws have to be fair to all industries. And so we're hoping that that will pass through in the next month or so. There is a lot of confusion right now about these guidelines and how to apply them, especially since last week we had in the state, there was a lawsuit against the governor in the state regarding executive orders that they were being extended too much, and they ruled in favor of the plaintiff, who is a state representative, which from what I've been talking to different lawyers, this essentially has actually overruled all of the executive orders, including the guidelines that we have for our industry. So it's kind of a complicated situation now because Illinois essentially is as a state, is like what happened in Wisconsin. We're hoping that people will still follow the guidelines that we've all set up in the industries for the state while we go through this appeals process. They go through this appeals process and then possibly to the Supreme Court of Illinois. But it's hard for people to understand how to apply them or if they should be applying them or how to communicate with their clients. So one of the things we'll be working on is we're releasing our own guidelines from the NACE task force for the Chicago and Illinois area. And we're going to be kind of explaining in an upcoming webinar, probably that'll be next week, and answering those questions and continue these conversations, because I think the more conversation we have about how to have safe events, the better off we're going to be in the long run. So that's kind of where we're at for the state of Illinois. Allie obviously has some additional things to share.
Great. Yeah, Allie, could you layer on to what you're seeing? I know you've been working with a lot of the senators
Yeah. I mean, it's I think what I think that we're sort of focused on as far as the Illinois Events Coalition goes for now is that, I mean, I've talked to a bunch of different leads recently who are like, we're just putting everything on hold to see how things what happens next. And we've just moved our last, like all of our weddings are moved till next year. Everyone who calls is 2021, if not 2022. So with that is a major financial impact on all of us. And so I think this HEROES Act and Congress is, it's obviously been said it's dead on arrival. And Nancy Pelosi appealed to everyone that we have to have this conversation. There needs to be another care package for us. There needs to be better understanding of the PUA and the extension of the additional $600 a month. So for us, we're very focused on that. Obviously the House passed it, so now it's up to our senators. And so I think what's really important, we're in communication with Senator Duckworth and Senator Durbin's office. We're working on a survey that's going to go out because we want to re-poll everyone of what they think for them and for the event industry is the most important when it comes to the HEROES Act, because there's going to be a lot of negotiation that happens between all the congressmen. So for us right now, we're happy that Duckworth and Durbin are backing that and they want to help move that forward. So we're going to help get them the data that they need to help use that. And they're also talking to a lot of different coalitions that are affected, venues that host concerts, things like that. So for us right now, and for Michelle and Colin and I, and what we're working on right now is just having those conversations and having them hopefully understand the impact of it so that when that HEROES Act goes there, we're going to be okay, or else we're not going to be here next year when everyone is here to celebrate. And that's what I think is the most important, is that we want there to be competition in an industry for all these couples and companies to come back to select from. And so that's kind of where we're looking at right now. The guidelines are there. They're very, like Megan said, they're somewhat confusing. So we get emails daily from, can you ask this question? So we're in contact with the BACP at the city of Chicago, who answers questions, because they didn't say anything about, well, what about, brides and grooms standing up there with their minister or with the officiant, and then what about the wedding party? So we're trying to get those answers as they come in, but then also to me right now is working with the senator's office so that they can have the data that they need, which has changed since the first time we polled everyone. Because people at that point thought they were going to be doing events in October. And most of, I mean, I'm sure everyone can agree, nod your head if you agree, most of the people that I'm talking to are even scared to do Q1, Q2 next year. So that's a long ways away. And while it might, you know, the guidelines are great, there's lots of outbreaks happening. You see it on the news every day. It's only a matter of time before we all know an event planner or someone who works in the event industry who's been affected and then possibly has to make hundreds of phone calls to contact trace. So I think that right now for the Illinois Events Coalition, I think the most important thing is aid, the extension of the SBA, as Will said and Arthur said, and focusing on those things.
Great, thank you. Let's talk about California. I know there's some people from Northern and Southern California on the call. Kate, talk us through what you're seeing in Northern California, and definitely there's a different sense and initiative in Southern California, and you're connected with both. Maybe you can share kind of the state of California, which is quite large.
Yeah, we have some like almost different cultures between Northern and Southern California. I know Northern California was probably one of the first, San Francisco was one of the first cities to shut down. And I think getting into conversations with our local representatives has been more difficult up here than it has been for those in Southern California. We have a large group of event professionals down in Southern California that are having great successes in discussing guidelines with their representatives, and that's really great. I think that's one thing that's really different between us and other states is that California has taken a county by county approach. Which has been really confusing for everybody and really difficult as well. Just recently, before I move into that, actually, statewide, California generally, for those that are asking, allows for wedding ceremonies of up to 100 people for up to 2 hours with no food service and no socializing before or after. In some counties, it's different. In some counties, they are allowing for gatherings of 12 people, and I've heard discussions of other numbers. I think someone mentioned Los Angeles County. I think that first part stands for them, but they're also allowing for up to 25% of facilities capacity for an indoor ceremony. But what's frustrating about this is that all of this information is held on individual county websites, which are all completely different, organized completely different. And it's really difficult to get the information. So we're seeing a lot of illegal events here. And, you know, because of that, and because our governor has specifically spoken to live events and social events as being the reason for our spikes, whether you believe that or not, you know, they actually instated some task force recently with the licensing organizations here in California. And just this past weekend, for the 4th of July weekend, I believe the Alcohol Beverage Controller, ABC, did over 6,000 visits to local restaurants and bars. And then the Division of, or the Department of Industrial Relations and Division of Occupational Safety and Health did over 441,000 check-ins via in-person visits, phone visits, and email. So what we're trying to do as far as the education part of our mission is that we want to make it easier for people to find this information, because the last thing that we want is for these illegal events for people to lose their license, not be able to operate their business for future events, and then causing an even greater financial hardship throughout our industry. So we really want people to be safe and conscious when they're, you know, moving through these events and considerate about that. You know, we want people to be able to work as soon as it's safely possible. And so putting together these procedures is something that's really important to us. And hopefully having some discussions about making that statewide, as difficult as that sounds, or at least sharing them from county to county and making little tweaks and adjustments to meet the needs of those county organizations. So that's kind of the current situation that we're in. Hopefully we'll be able to get Southern California on board a little bit sooner than Northern, and hopefully that will show our Northern California government that we can see some successes with these safe guidelines in place, because it's really frustrating to hear that our numbers are spiking due to these illegal events, but not have any guidance. that doesn't seem to be working. And even in Northern California, we saw a lot. We saw, I think, 19 counties shut down for spiking numbers. All of the the restaurants and bars and things like that closed. We kind of cycled back from stage 3 a little bit. We're still in stage 3. Just yesterday, they actually added 6 more counties for a total of 25 of the 58 counties throughout California, actually rolling back a little bit. We don't want to continue seeing that happen, and we don't want to be like rocking back and forth. And so without guidelines to help make these events safe and these gatherings safe, you know, we're going to continue to see that because people are interpreting it as they can find it, which is very difficult.
Yeah. And I see some people in the chat talking about illegal events that are causing spread. So against the government, you know, guidelines. I know we in the event industry have never worked in a regulated industry. I used to work in digital banking and pharmaceutical that are heavily regulated. Of course, there's regulations and safety, but nothing about size of events that we've ever seen before. So I don't know if anyone on the panel has any sense of, you know, what we can do as leaders to make sure that, you know, we're advocating to follow the regulations, because that could just hurt everyone in the industry.
Well, and one of the things that we're doing is creating a portal on our website for people to quickly drop down to their county and find the most recent information. We're eventually going to be asking for some volunteers to be county monitors or regional monitors, so that we can link to the proper pages on those county health departments and people can find that information more quickly than they currently can.
Great. All right, well, I know there's other questions that have come up in the Q&A of people really want to know how they, oh, go ahead. Yeah, Allie, go ahead.
I think we all, as like people that are leading task forces and all the coalitions and alliances and things like that, I think it's very important for us to reiterate and repeat the fact that following these guidelines are going to help us get back to where we need to be. So I think we all just have to like, just make sure that we're with the people that we reach, right? With our email blasts and with our Facebook posts and our Instagram posts, is just reiterate, please follow these guidelines. The more we follow them, the more we're going to get back to business.
Yes, absolutely. That might need to be another campaign that we start.
Cool.
I have heard that from quite a few people. Again,
I actually have one. It's just if people can share that we masks on, party on, because we really do need to go. And like Allie was saying, it's really important that these guidelines, whatever guidelines, you know, you can adapt for your area, are followed, because we will roll back and we will lose more work. And that's really the concern. The guidelines are not there to open up the country completely and have 1 billion events happening with lots of people. It's not meant, it's to progressively have us move forward and allow us to show the environment, the entire, you know, events industry, as well as the public, that we can, that the events industry is not the culprit. Let's take away the blame, because right now the events industry, and up until recently, we were really being seen as, you know, we were the culprit of how this is going to be transmitted. And one of the things we found out and realized through not having events is that, you know, people are getting it from other things. And so if we can show that, like, hey, we can do this safely and people aren't going to be able to go, and we can do contact tracing and we have all these control measures, it's going to create confidence that we can move forward as an industry in the future.
We also did have a question about some of the key regulations. And again, everyone, I promise you, we're going to send you all of this documentation afterwards, because there's been so much work that's been done in all of these different metro areas. So we will send all of these guidelines out to you. But I don't know if anyone's interested in kind of sharing the highlights of what are some of these top guidelines that we're negotiating for, or have a seat at the table to share, that we would like to bring, how we will bring events back safely. I don't know if anyone would like to comment on that. Megan, I know you're working.
Because I'm pretty well versed in them after writing and rewriting them for Illinois and Chicago. The most important thing is the exposure times and the amount of exposure that people are having. And that's really where the health departments were focusing on these guidelines and making sure we're following social distancing. And there's various different tools that we're using in all different industries that can be applied to events, like, you know, creating distancing, just like at the grocery store, for a line at the bar, or for different queues that you're going to have. And then spacing of tables, spacing of people, the amount of people. Then also when they're going to be unmasked, going and having it being a controlled amount of people that are being unmasked. So in Illinois, it's 10 people at a table, while they're eating, they can take off their mask, but they have to, we can then control the amount of exposure time and the amount of people that you're exposed to. So that's really the keys of all these guidelines are trying to reduce exposure to people and to large quantities of people. And each state is kind of interpreting them in different ways, but universally, most of these guidelines I've seen, even for different industries, are kind of following the same practices. So once you start reading them, and if you, as an industry, professional, really want to absorb yourself into it, it gets easy to apply it and then explain it to people. So I would encourage people to look at all these guidelines that we have written and then try to really understand that whole exposure time period.
I think one other key point is, we have been writing these policies, protocols for our own operation, for our own teams, for our own venues. But a really important part, it didn't occur to us immediately up front in New York, but it came to us once we started to disseminate it with industry colleagues, is strategic partners and how you collaborate with vendors who are coming in and visiting from offsite, because a florist could not know the protocols that you're following and blow it up, right? And then all the work has gone to waste. So I think this goes back to the earlier point of engaging the community, being loud about the protocols that we are all agreeing to, and making sure that before your event, well before your event, everybody has an opportunity to read it, agree to it, confirm that they're comfortable with it, so that we can all follow through and give everybody the greatest level of confidence.
And I think to Will's point, I'm sorry if I have unstable internet, but is really educating the client. I think so many times you just want to jump on it and produce their event and move forward and get creative again and jump right in. But I think education is key. What is the mask? Why is it being worn? Why do you need a hand washing station? Why do we need hand sanitizer? Why is it important for staff to keep their distance? All of these things are really important. And even after an event, if for some reason there were multiple people there without a mask, getting that staff tested, like protecting the event so that we can move forward. So I think education is key. And I think it starts with the relationship with the client first and foremost, so that we safely can produce for them as well.
Absolutely. And again, many people are excited to see these guidelines that you put together. We will send them all out. We will send the links. We have the PDF. So I promise you, I'm so glad that people are getting all of your hard work. The other thing I keep seeing on the Q&A, and many people have asked, is what can they do to get involved, to help? I know there's multiple ways people can get involved, and I know many people do have the time to help, and it's one of the rare moments in the events industry, at least what I've seen over the last 5-6 years, is there is time to really focus on making an impact and actually, helping us get out of this, because we're in a world of very few events. So I guess I'll start with, Arthur. We'll go from New York back to the West Coast. What are some things that you guys can tell or advise the people from the New York region or anywhere that can help move the coalition objectives forward? What can they do?
Well, not only in addition to the letter writing and getting to your elected officials and all that, but just speaking out, getting whatever press opportunities. A lot of people know people, whether it's a local paper, whether it's a news network. I'm getting myself really out there more than ever right now, getting in ink and digital and doing TV, and always bringing events into it. Because even on the restaurant side, which I had the ability to open an outdoor part of a restaurant that I have right now, still so much of that business is still relying on gatherings and events to be financially stable and sustainable. So I think it's really important to get the word out in so many ways and be very clear about what we're looking to do to re-enter, back into the marketplace safely, always safely, because not, everybody I know commented on these illegal, parties. It is frustrating. And listen, being in New York, the timing, and I'm sure it's similar in Chicago and maybe in DC a little bit, but we're in California, Florida, you have warm weather most of the year. So maybe it's not such a big deal, but for us, you have such a short summer season. So everybody, the city is almost left on its own right now because everybody went away. A lot of people, they're doing their gatherings and they're entertaining, whether it's in the Hamptons or in the, in Connecticut, Westchester, and in Jersey on the shore. So what we are, if we don't really talk about this, before you know it, fall comes around. And that's really our indoor season starts again. So to us, indoor season means the larger venues and so much of the revenue generating and what the impact is in our business. And, we won't have those opportunities to do anything outdoors. And listen, something that just happened this week, it affects even the event business because the indoor dining was rolled back or it was put on hold. That means the indoor aspect of what I think Megan alluded to it, where it's the time being spent, the data, the science, that they know that being indoors and being exposed to people indoors is going to be different than being outdoors. That's what everybody's hearing constantly. And it's something that really affects us, so much. So speaking positively about our business, both, whatever press into, any important decision makers is really important.
Great. Will, did you want to add to that? I completely agree. Being from Chicago, where we basically have 3 months of nice weather and then it's indoor, outdoor venues or outdoor dining can only last so long, outdoor events where we live. So completely see that point of view. Will, did you have anything else to add?
Find your local coalition and join it, right? And in many cases it won't exist. So start the coalition. I know that there are so many industry colleagues of yours that are asking the same exact questions. And what we're sharing today, all the protocols we've written, they're not proprietary. We wrote them so that they could be shared and applied widely. And we will continue to update them and continue to update you on those updates. And again, this goes to just being on the same page. And the more of these coalitions that exist and the more connected we are, the better, for sure.
Great. Jeanette, you want to also mention what you're doing kind of with lobbying and, being in DC, the town of politics and lobbying. Maybe you could share a little bit about what you're doing there and then how people can help.
Sure. So we're just starting to gear up to start to plan to lobby. As you can imagine, lobbying is an expensive undertaking. And so a little bit of raising money first, becoming aware, becoming educated, getting the right people on board, the right firms on board to help us, and also bringing light to the event industry. So it really goes back to what Will said, like making noise and making people understand just how large our industry is. So that's where we're at right now. I think what Will said, it's really important for every state to have a coalition. Doesn't matter how big or how small it is. And then really register your coalition under the live events coalition. Like I highly recommend it because then I think we have a bigger platform. And I think ultimately that's what's going to help us when it's time to lobby and to get in front of the right people.
And for those who don't know, can you just give a 2-minute overview of the Live Events Coalition? Because it was a little confusing to me on the local coalitions and how they tie back to larger groups.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And Allie, if I disconnect, you can jump in. So the Live Event Coalition originally started, Isaac started a campaign on change.org. So many of you probably signed that petition. That's kind of how it started. It's made up of a lot of event producers, and ultimately it was there to kind of start the guidelines and help. But as you can imagine, especially when Kate's talking about California and every county being completely different, it didn't work to have the Live Events Coalition educate every single person in their own individual state and county. So that's when different coalitions kind of came together to help and support their industry partners in their specific states or counties. And then ultimately the idea is for the Live Events Coalition to get the seat at the table to lobby, to make a statement on from all of us as one larger unit. So the goal is for all of us to kind of be an umbrella under them. Does that help?
Perfect. Yes, thank you.
And if I just wanted to make the point too. I think one thing that we've realized too when starting our organization that nationally has been the national coalition and our national work has been so important with the financial aspect of things. And then statewide, we can work on the mandates and guidelines. So I think many of us are on weekly calls with the Live Events Coalition so that we can coordinate, share information, all of that, but then also coordinate for the national efforts, for the financial efforts for our industry, while taking the information to work on our statewide coalitions and work on the mandates and guidelines.
Perfect. That helps. Megan or Allie, do you guys want to jump in and talk about how people can help in Chicago or nationally?
I would say one of the things that I would really encourage people is to really understand these guidelines. If you don't have these kinds of guidelines set up in your own state, I mean, various different coalitions and different groups are addressing it in their own states, but that to find out who has contacts to those decision makers and those people to get into those groups. You know, I was really fortunate to partner with an amazing event planner here in Chicago as my partner and my colleague to get into these working groups that ended up benefiting our industry because we had a voice within these guidelines. Our biggest concern was that if you don't, if we didn't have a voice within it, they were going to write the guidelines without our participation and our point of view. And that, as we've already learned, we were already already not seen by government, and we had to speak up just to be heard and noticed. But then also we've learned that they don't understand how our industry works. They don't even understand the terms. And so we had to almost educate them in that process. So I would really encourage people that to take a look, if there aren't guidelines in your own area, you know, get involved, and maybe you are creating a coalition, maybe you're stepping forward as a leader in your community and reaching out to those people who will have the connections to get to those right government officials. In this case, for the guidelines, it was getting to the mayor and the mayor's office in Chicago, and then also the governor's office in the state, which it took going through various different interesting routes to get there and get our voices heard. So, you know, if you just like Will was saying, if you have media connections or if you can get press, and Arthur's saying, you know, if you can get that kind of attention, that's great. But some people know people in government, and that could be really helpful.
Great.
Yeah, and I would say, I think that's some great points. And I would also say, I encourage everyone to join their coalitions in their own states, but also join the other coalitions, because I work all over this country and all over this world. So I think it's important for all of us to understand what's going on in these individual states. So join all of, I know you're gonna send out something, but join all of the coalitions, sign up for their email newsletters. We're gonna be sending, Illinois specifically is gonna be sending a survey out and sharing it on our Facebook page. So please join our Facebook page, also join as a supporter. Even if you're not from Illinois, please join as a supporter. It's ileventscoalition.com. And we made it plural.
We'll send the link out to everyone. Yeah.
We made it plural so that because we want to be able to do lots of them, right? And lots of events.
Yeah.
So please join, and then please take that survey when we send it out this week. I think that's going to be really important as Congress goes back and as this HEROES Act transforms and hopefully is there to support us while we wait for going back to doing the business the way we know it. And then also please join the campaign. I think the Wish I Was There campaign is great. And I think if everyone could just use that on their social media this week and for the next week, that's going to start, you know, sort of the first part of what the live events and what DC Events Coalition is doing. So let's please just all join each other's coalitions and take part in all those sort of social media calls to action. I think this is going to be really effective as we move forward.
Yeah, I think, and there are so many other coalitions. There's only so many people on a Zoom panel that we can include. So if we didn't include you, you know, please reach out to us and we'll create a list of all the coalitions. And I know many of you guys on the panel are already in touch with some of those metro area leaders that are getting their coalitions going. I think the less recreating the wheel, the more we can leverage kind of, I know people make fun of me, but best practices of what New York is doing, or DC to Chicago to California, the less work it is for these clearly volunteer positions that are, in addition to keeping your business going, you're doing all this amazing leadership work. So let's leverage all that work you're doing and share it with people all over. And I see some people saying, you know, consistent voice, consistent talk points. I think that's really, really important. So we just have 5 more minutes. So again, anyone that has any last questions, if we didn't get to your questions, again, we're gonna send everyone's contact information. Why don't we just have some closing thoughts? I know this 55 minutes went so fast. I feel like we just started, but maybe we can have some closing thoughts or on kind of the state of the events industry or anything, any messages you want to get through to the people attending. We had about 400 people register. And then as I mentioned, we have many, many people that come back and review this recording, and we'll send the recording out to everyone for the people that missed it. But any final thoughts? Let's start with Arthur for the people on the webinar today.
Well, listen, it's been great just hearing from the panelists, from so many different experiences and places in this country, and just what we've been doing and connecting with our colleagues and just sharing just all our ideas and challenges and everything else that's been going on. It's just been an amazing, unique time. We don't need another pandemic for a long time, maybe more than 100 years, but
yeah,
listen,
100.
I hope this is going to make us more prepared. Listen, hopefully you've spent time and everybody's really been able to look at their businesses and how when we are able to, come out of this, what's best for each individual and what's best for the businesses that they are involved in. And I think that's been an important thing. We haven't really talked about just so many of the people that you work with. I have a pretty big team, and a lot of the people have been just really contributing and showing their ability to adapt better than ever. And it's really been amazing. And that's what really gets me going every day and keeps my passion going, because I know this is really tough times, but we're doing it together. So
yeah, thank you, Arthur. Will, any final thoughts?
I would just encourage everybody to stay active. This whole thing really stinks and is terribly frustrating, but to the best of your mental and physical ability, stay active, stay connected, raise your hand. Your neighbors want to help. You want to help your neighbors. I just think this is a call to empathy, and to echo Arthur's sentiment. I've so appreciated the opportunity to connect with other industry colleagues, and this is another perfect example, and I look forward to being a resource and leaning on everybody here going forward.
Thank you. Jeanette?
Hope I don't cut out. Thank you for having us. Am I cutting out?
We can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you for having us. I wanted to say that for the first time in a really long time, I feel like we're all on a level playing field. We're all going through this together. And I think the best way to do it is to actually truly continue to do this together. Follow the rules, stay safe, educate yourself, educate your clients, and get involved. It's ultimately, we're in it together.
Thank you. Allie?
I think everyone said it really well. So I'll just ditto what everyone said. I think what's really important right now is if anyone listening on this call needs advice or help, or can you send me that link? We're going to share all of our email addresses. Do not hesitate to reach out. We all, we should all be really busy right now and not have time to talk to one another, but we have this time. So if you need help, reach out to any of us. If we don't know the answer, we will get the answer for you.
Thank you. Megan?
I want to thank you, Julie, also for putting this together. I know we spoke a few weeks ago how I really felt that this is important for us to bring everybody together and show all the hard work that's been done across the country, and make sure that people that aren't maybe in our specific areas know that that work is being done. I really want to end on, I think it's critically important that we as an industry encourage the safe events and providing structure and guidelines for our industry to follow, because this is how we're going to protect ourselves and protect our industry to move forward. I've learned that if you participate with government and are open and communicative with them, they respect you and they will trust us. And I felt like we initially walked into COVID-19 pandemic without a lot of trust from the government. And I think that we're going to regain it. And if we can all come together and be a group and be aligned with that, and that might mean holding other vendors accountable, reporting when unsafe practices aren't happening, and as Jeanette said, educating your clients as well as your peers. And so the more we can share and the more conversations we can have, and being positive about events, because one of also our concerns is we don't want people to see us as anything negative and that our industry is unwilling to comply to anything.
Thank you so much. Kate, last but not least.
Megan, you spoke so much to what I feel in my heart right now. I think one of the things that's really troubling about all of this is that we're all in this industry and we all work in what we do and we all know who's involved, but a lot of the support that we need is from people who don't understand what live events are. And so getting involved with your coalition, joining, being a voice, sending the letters. We've all made it really easy to send a letter. You don't have to write a letter. We've written it for you. We make it really easy for you to plug in your personal story as well. And then being a part of this Wish I Was There social media campaign, because we've all been trained to be invisible when we do our work. We've all been trained to be behind the scenes and not be seen. And so it's only natural that those that are not in this industry don't realize how many people and who is involved in putting together these events. But this is the time where we need to be seen and we need to be loud and we need to be heard so that people understand what is involved. There are millions of jobs that are not being considered and billions of dollars of revenue that are not being considered. And I've had so many conversations with our representatives where they're shocked and surprised to hear this and they don't realize it.
I
so
completely agree.
We need to make that heard and be involved in that.
Yeah, I was going to say when PartySlate, when we were first starting out, and I was presenting to venture capitalists, they didn't really, they understood weddings, but they didn't understand. I'm like, don't you go to these big corporate, big events every night of the week? Oh yeah. They don't put together the hundreds and hundreds of people that put on those big events that go to. And so that's not the government, but that's really smart venture capitalists that don't understand the industry. So you can kind of understand why they aren't aware. We don't even have an industry code yet.
Yeah.
I know that's something we're working on. So I'm excited that, we have so many amazing people. This is just the tip of the iceberg, the people on this call. There's hundreds and hundreds of other people that have stepped up to be part of these coalitions. And, Arthur, something you said, I will make a little pitch for our next webinar is this is a time to focus on your business. Usually we're in the business, we're in it. Now you can focus on it. So in addition to the coalitions, I'm going to keep advocating that you build your digital brand, you work on your websites, your Instagram, of course, your PartySlate profile. Next week on Tuesday, we are going to pull it all together and share kind of the 5 ways to optimize your digital footprint. And I really hope you can join it because my passion is helping your business be stronger than ever when we get out of this mess that we are in. So I am optimistic with people on this panel that we are going to fight for what we need to continue as an amazing industry. I see many people like, yes, we're going to come back in the chat. So that's so good to see. So thank you to our panelists, not only for your time today, but for all the hard work and for being so generous with sharing all of the work you've done. We will send all of it out to the people that joined today and that listen to the recording. And then again, please, I wish I was the expert like you guys. I'm not. We will connect you directly to the experts to get you help in your local community. So thank you again. I appreciate your time. And again, let us know how PartySlate can support you guys in any way. Thank you so much for your time, and we will send you the recording soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.